What's going on, world? Welcome to the TYSK Report. I got some great articles lined up on the docket, but before we begin, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe. Let's go ahead and dive into our first article talking about Sarla. Excel doubles down on Sarla Aviation's ambition to develop electric air taxis in India. Sarla Aviation launched 1 year ago with a pitch built for India's congested streets. The electric air taxi startup, named after India's first woman pilot, Sarla Thukral, would focus on aircraft that can carry more weight even if that means shorter ranges. Unlike most flying air taxi concepts that have 2 to 4 passenger capacity, the Bengaluru-based startup is looking at a vehicle carrying 6 passengers and a pilot weighing up to 1,500 pounds. Increasing the payload reduces the range to 99 miles per battery charge. In contrast, a typical flying taxi concept offers a range between 120 to 160 miles. The 1-year-old startup is set to showcase its first air taxi prototype called Shunya at an industry event in New Delhi starting today, January 17th. The company will start testing prototypes later this year and plans to launch its first commercial air taxi sometime in 2028. Sarla's aviation air taxi ticket would be priced similarly to the top line of an Uber or Ola cab, which will come down to the fare Indian riders typically pay for an auto rickshaw over time, the executive claimed. Sarla Aviation will compete with well-funded Archer Aviation, which partner with Interglobe Enterprises, and E-Plane, which raised $14 million in November at a $46 million valuation. So that's some news related to the air taxi space, but specifically when it comes to India, I believe it's going to be very challenging for this company Sarla to compete with the likes of Archer Aviation, who has a lot of backing and around $400+ million to build out their fleets and launch in multiple cities. But due to the fact that Sarla is an Indian-based startup, I'm pretty sure the country is going to have a little bit of favoritism related to those Indian startups. I know E-Plane is also there, but also one thing to point out related to this article is lots of money and innovation has been pouring into India. So this is definitely a country we should be looking out for this year to hear lots of different news related to what companies are doing there, what people are creating, and I'll make sure to bring you that news if it comes. Now let's move into Google and the AI podcast host being sick of humans. Google's Notebook LM had to teach its AI podcast host not to act annoyed at humans. Being interrupted is annoying. Apparently, even AI-generated podcast hosts agree, or so Google Notebook's LM users discovered. Notebook LM launched last year and went viral for its feature that creates entirely AI-generated podcast-like discussions from content users upload. In December 2024, Notebook LM launched a new feature called Interactive Mode, which allows the user to call in to the podcast and ask questions, essentially interrupting the AI hosts as they talk. When the feature was first rolled out, the AI hosts seemed annoyed at such interruptions. They were occasionally giving snippy comments to human callers like, "I was getting to that," or "as I was about to say," which felt oddly adversarial, Josh Woodard, VP of Google Labs, explained to TechCrunch. So Notebook's LM team decided that some friendliness tuning was in order, and Woodard said the team fixed the problem partly by studying how its own members would answer interruptions more politely. So when reading this article, I always think about people when they're having these conversations of how they're always interrupting one another and not letting the person who is speaking finish their statement. And I'm sure this AI had the same thing. I know it's a feature where you can interrupt it, but maybe there's a way to implement some button where when you click it, it notifies those AI podcast hosts and then they can say, "Hey, we have a caller," or something like that. But I think related to what happened with the AI podcast host, it seems to be a more natural response. So giving it that friendliness tuning creates this type of persona or personality that's not truly realistic. Maybe in the moment that person was actually annoying. Maybe the way they asked the question annoyed the AI podcast host. I know that's kind of far out to think about, but maybe that's what happened. So from my perspective, when it came to Google doing that, I was like, maybe you should have just let that ride out a little bit more, allowing the AI podcast host to possibly later on down the road when they're talking to that person come back and say, "Hey, we were a little bit rude, we apologize," or something like that. Let's move on to the next article talking about more telesurgery success. SS Innovations completes 2 robotic cardiac telesurgeries. SS Innovations International recently announced 2 landmark robotic cardiac telesurgeries in just 2 days. The team performed both surgeries with the SSI Mantra 3 surgical robotic system. They involve remotely connecting SS Innovations headquarters in Gurugram, India with Manipal Hospital and Jaipur, Rajasthan, spanning a distance of 286 kilometers. For a country like India with its vast rural population and significant healthcare disparities, this innovation has the potential to be transformative. Telesurgery brings world-class surgical expertise directly to underserved communities, eliminating the need for patients to travel long distances to urban centers for specialized care. It ensures timely interventions while reducing logistical and financial burdens on families, according to CEO Dr. Sudhir Srivastava. SS Innovations' product range includes its proprietary SSI Mantra surgical robotic system and the SSI Mudra surgical instruments. SSI Mudra is designed to support a variety of surgical procedures, including robotic cardiac surgery. The company said it plans to expand the presence of its user-friendly and cost-effective systems globally. The Manipal Hospital surgical team completed its first telesurgery, a remotely conducted robotic-assisted internal mammary artery harvesting procedure, in just 58 minutes. The second was a robotic beating heart totally endoscopic coronary artery bypass TCAB. This procedure was performed via telesurgery under the same collaboration, also with a low latency of just 40 milliseconds. So that's an update related to telesurgeries. In the previous past months, I've talked about telesurgeries and also SS Innovations providing this type of care to patients out in India. So it's good to hear that things are moving along, and I did previously say that this would grow, and as we can see from this article, it has. So as time moves along, we shall see if any of my thoughts come into fruition, and if it does, I'll make sure to bring you that news if it comes. Let's move on to that next article. Google-backed Pixel launches India's first private satellite constellation. Pixel, an Indian space tech startup, has successfully launched the first 3 hyperspectral satellites of its commercial constellation Firefly aboard a SpaceX rocket from California, marking a significant milestone for India's growing space ambitions. The latest launch is the start of commercial operations for Bengaluru-based Pixel and took place from the Vandenberg Space Force Base Tuesday at around 10:45 a.m. Pacific Time under SpaceX Transporter 12 rideshare mission. Hyperspectral satellites have gained popularity among space companies as large corporations and governments seek insights into deforestation, ocean pollution, oil spills, and water quality. While drones can provide some data, satellites are generally more effective and efficient in most of these cases. The 3 satellites are part of the 5-year-old startup's first commercialization phase, which will include 3 more by Q2 and a total of 18 to 24 satellites by 2026 through 2027, its chief said in an interview hours before the launch. The satellites can capture data across over 150 spectral bands to detect subtle changes in chemical compositions, vegetation health, water quality, and atmospheric conditions. Onboard narrowband sensors help find hidden patterns and anomalies, which can be helpful for agricultural and climate applications. The startup has signed over 60 customers in the last few years, including the Indian Agriculture Ministry, British Petroleum, and NASA. So that's an update related to a company that is also pushing out satellites into space, and it doesn't always have to be a SpaceX and Starlink connection, but also this is another article that's talking about India and Indian-based startups. So based on the previous article and now this one, I'm definitely starting to believe that we're going to hear more related to Indian startups, or money being poured into the country, or innovation coming out of the country. So when it comes to Pixel, when it comes to Starlink and the SpaceX connection, and even when it comes to what I talked about in this previous video right here related to China also launching a satellite into space, it looks like satellites are going to be a key focus for this year in 2025. So we should definitely be prepared to hear more and more news related to satellites and what companies are doing as they continue to find ways to launch them out into space. Now let's go ahead and dive into this next article talking about ChatGPT's latest feature. ChatGPT can now handle reminders and to-dos. OpenAI is launching a new beta feature in ChatGPT called Task that lets users schedule future actions and reminders. The feature, which has rolled out to Plus, Team, and Pro subscribers, is an attempt to make the chatbot into something closer to a traditional digital assistant, think Google Assistant or Siri, but with ChatGPT's more advanced language capabilities. Task works by letting users tell tell ChatGPT what they need and when they need it done. Want a daily weather report at 7 a.m., a reminder about your passport expiration, or maybe just a knock-knock joke to tell your kids before bedtime? ChatGPT can now handle all of that through scheduled one-time or recurring tasks. The addition of tasks suggests OpenAI is expanding ChatGPT's role beyond conversation into territory traditionally held by virtual assistants. Bloomberg reported that Operator, an autonomous AI agent capable of independently controlling computers, is slated for release this month. OpenAI also appears to be working on something codenamed Caterpillar that could integrate with tasks, allowing ChatGPT to search for specific information, analyze problems, summarize data, navigate websites, and access documents, with users receiving notifications upon task completion. So that's just some of the latest news related to ChatGPT. This seems like a very interesting feature, so I do wonder if you have been using this feature so far, and if you have, I would definitely love to hear more about how it's going for you down in the comment section below. But when it comes to this tool, I think Google and Anthropic and other companies building out models are also looking at this, and soon they will see how it plays out, what people think about it, what's the sentiment related to, if it's great or if it sucks. And with all that information, I believe later on down the road this year, they're all going to implement something like this. But this also goes to show how this type of technology can change the way people do things and not only disrupt positions, but can be this powerful tool that can be utilized in a multi-purpose way. Let's move on to the next article. Meta adds 200 megawatts of solar to its 12 gigawatt renewable portfolio. Meta this week announced it was buying 200 megawatts of solar energy from multinational electric utility ENGIE, adding to the tech firm's considerable 12 plus gigawatts renewable power portfolio. The news comes as tech companies ramp up their AI ambitions, adding data centers at a breakneck pace and boosting demand for power to the point that half of all new AI servers could be underpowered by 2027. Meta has been steadily adding new capacity, announcing in December that it would be building a 2 gigawatt data center in Louisiana, though that campus reportedly will be powered by natural gas. The new solar farm is a short distance from one of Meta's existing data centers in Texas. Meta also announced in December that it was seeking proposals from nuclear power developers for 1 to 4 gigawatts of power by the early 2030s as well. Now, the speed at which renewables can be deployed will be one of the largest challenges facing nuclear startups. Meta's new solar farm, for example, is expected to come online in 2025. So energy is going to be a very key focus, not only for this year, but for the years to come. And as I stated before in the past, it is 2025 now. 2027 is only 2 years away, and those 2 years can fly by. So we can get to that point where all of this innovation happens, they built out these data centers, but then all of that could come to a halt due to the fact that the energy that is needed is not there. And with that, I do think we could possibly this year and the years to come see a lot more blackouts, not just on the West Coast and like California and things like that, but nationwide due to the energy that could be pulled from the power grid. We shall see what happens next. I'll make sure to keep you updated related to any information when it comes to data centers, the likes of Meta or other big companies who are looking to do the same thing. Now let's move on to the next article talking about DJI and their drones. DJI will no longer stop drones from flying over airports, wildfires, and the White House. For over a decade, you could easily fly a DJI drone over restricted areas in the United States. DJI software would automatically stop you from flying over runways, power plants, public emergencies like wildfires, and the White House. But confusingly, amidst the greatest U.S. outpouring of drone distrust in the years, DJI is getting rid of its strong geofence. DJI will no longer enforce no-fly zones, instead only offering a dismissible warning, meaning only common sense, empathy, and the fear of getting caught by authorities will prevent people from flying where they shouldn't. In a blog post, DJI categorizes this as placing control back in the hands of the drone operators. DJI voluntarily created its geofencing feature, so it makes a certain degree of sense that the company would get rid of it now that the US government no longer seems to appreciate its help, is blocking some of its drone imports, calls DJI a Chinese military company, and has started the countdown clock on a de facto import ban. So from my perspective, I think this is DJI saying, hey, you guys take care of it. We're no longer going to help out due to the fact that you've also put us in this category of being a Chinese military company, and you're also stopping the import of our drones. So there's no reason for us to prevent these drones from doing what they're not supposed to do. And on the other side of that, I do agree that it is the responsibility of the operator to not go against the rules related to where they can and can't fly. All in all, it does make sense. We'll see if things change with the new Trump administration coming in next week. They may get taken off that list and maybe things could go back to normal for them. But if not, things could heat up and a lot of changes could happen for this company. So that's just some of the latest news when it comes to the world of technology. I hope you enjoyed the video, and to continue to stay informed, you should check out these two videos right here. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment sections of those videos below, and stay tuned for the next video.